Russian eggs in the Big Easy, the Boston Mob, and what does katana mean? They all mean the same thing. Lost treasure you can maybe find yourself. Happy hunting. The Honjō Masamune sword was forged sometime in the 13th or 14th century in Japan. Legend has it that it was somehow imbued with the spirit of its creator, the legendary swordsmith Goro Nudo. That's probably where the DC character Katana got her sword's origin story, trapping souls in her sword. What does katana mean again?
It means Japanese sword.
Oh yeah. Anyway, the Honjō Masamune was used in battle and earned its name after it was won by General Honjō Shigenega in 1561. It was repeatedly sold and passed on until it landed with the Tokugawa family. They were forced to give it up in late 1945 when post-World War II US forces demanded the surrender of all swords and other heirlooms, just in case. That's where we lose track of the Honjō Masamune. It may have been carelessly destroyed, as some antique weapons were, but that seems pretty unlikely. Records indicate that the Tokugawa's weapons were given to Sergeant Coldy Bymore of the Army's Foreign Liquidations Commission. But here's the thing. There's no official record of a Sergeant Bymore in that division, and that name sounds rather sus, which leads credence to the theory that the whole thing was a heist.
Totally unexpected, the Honjō Masamune is right here in this shop, and it is $1.20.
Antique swords can be highly prized, and some of them have been recovered fairly close to home. One highly decorated short sword was dug up in a Berlin cellar in 2022, while another Masamune sword was recovered from Japanese land in 2014 and confirmed to be the real deal. Maybe the Honjō Masamune is next. It's almost too cinematic. A couple of thieves steal 13 masterpieces right off the walls of a museum and get away clean. Then none of the stolen art is ever seen again. It happened at Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in the wee hours of the morning on March 18, 1990. That night, two cops buzzed the entrance and said they were responding to a report of a disturbance. Never mind that the guard on duty should have known that the police had been called. After he buzzed them in, the intruders, who, surprise, weren't cops at all, tied up the museum's 2 security guards in the basement. The thieves then spent 80 relatively leisurely minutes cherry-picking the artworks they wanted, including major pieces by Rembrandt, Manet, and Vermeer. The total loss was estimated at over $500 million.
When I first entered the room, I saw the golden frames overlapping one another. The paintings weren't unscrewed from the back, they were cut out.
So how did 13 stolen masterworks disappear into thin air for over 35 years? The police, the real ones, believe it was the mob, with the emphasis on believe since they've never proven anything. Jimmy Marks, a Boston guy with criminal ties, claimed he had 2 of the missing paintings before his sudden, not at all suspicious death in what looked like a mob hit a year after the heist. Marks' connections and criminal record intersect with several likely suspects, so maybe, but the paintings are still missing.
We were shattered. It was like a death in the family.
There's been a few intriguing twists along the way, including a weird 1994 extortion letter, but they've all led to practically nothing all these years later. The museum is offering a $10 million reward for information leading to the artwork's return, and even after 35 years, the empty frames still hang in the Gardner galleries.
The Amber Room is the world's most valuable missing architectural art treasure.
The Amber Room was an over-the-top, opulent room paneled in amber and gold in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, Russia, dating back to 1745. From all reports, it was spectacular. It seemed to glow. Unfortunately, we'll probably never know because the Nazis stole it, and then they lost it. Had he misplaced an entire room? To go back just a little bit, the Amber Room was originally created for the Prussian Emperor, which might be why the Nazis felt entitled to it, but they felt entitled to everything on the planet, including all of Russia, so why bother making excuses at this point? Anyway, the Nazis had a thing for art theft and stole everything they could get their hands on. There were also sticklers for paperwork, so they created what we'll call the Department of Excuses for Terrible Cultural Behavior, led by propaganda chief Joseph Goebbels. That guy. The main idea there was to determine what foreign-held artworks were German in origin and ought to be returned to them. In September 1941, Nazi troops entered the Catherine Palace and dismantled the Amber Room within 3 days. The panels were shipped to Königsberg, displayed for a while, then crated up in 1943 to protect them from Allied bombs. They were last seen in 1945. There's some thought that the panels melted or burned in the bombing of Königsberg, but others believe they were on the SS Karlsruhe, which sank in the Baltic Sea off Poland in April 1945. Divers identified the wreck in 2020 and have raised some of the crates found inside, but so far they've only contained military gear, no priceless long-lost amber. If they never made it out of Königsberg, well, good luck finding them now. That city is now called Kaliningrad, and it rests in the Russian exclave located between Poland and Lithuania. Not exactly the easiest place to get into and start exploring. If you've seen any iteration of Robin Hood, you remember the bad guy, King John. Robin Hood may be a legend, but King John was real, and a real jerk. Not only did he lose major portions of the land he inherited, but his political screw-ups led to widespread rebellion and distrust. Back in 1216, John was on the run from a pack of dissident barons who'd pushed him to sign the Magna Carta and invited a French usurper to take the throne. John and his supporters were trying to gather an army when, in October, they began to cross the Wash, an area of coastal mudflats in Lincolnshire. In an epic expedition of stupidity, John and his people miscalculated the tides, and many of them, not to mention most of their stuff, sunk in the mire. John escaped, but according to contemporary accounts, he was so upset that he got sick and died. It seems like a bit of an overreaction, but maybe he was really attached to something that got lost in the mud. So what went into the Wash? Contemporary records mention treasure, and John was known to have some super swaggy jewelry and religious objects, along with plenty of royal regalia. Some had been sold off to pay for John's army, but not all of it.
That is the crest of England. That's a 3 lions for Sam.
Is
The official seal of England.
Over the intervening centuries, bits and pieces of loot have been recovered in the area, but so far no golden hoard has come to light, giving hope to treasure hunters everywhere.
The crown jewel.
The crown jewel?
Oh yeah, they stole the crown jewels. Not the British ones. We're talking about the Irish crown jewels, which include a jewel-encrusted star, badge, and 5 collars. They were linked to the aristocratic Order of St. Patrick rather than a monarch, but prior to Irish independence, they were, obviously, connected to Britain. The Order's Grand Master, the dude who'd been sporting all the jewels, was meant to represent Britain's power over Ireland. When not in use, the jewels were stored in Dublin Castle, where the Office of Arms was in charge of keeping them safe. It was a serious responsibility. By 1907, the jewels were valued at £50,000, which would be more than $7 million today. That summer, the door to the castle's strong room was found open, and the safe that contained the jewels was unlocked and empty. According to police, the safe hadn't been forced, which suggested the heist was an inside job, although some of the employees objected to the point of suing for damage to their reputations. That didn't stop rumors of wild parties held at the castle, the head of security being a bit of a party animal, and the sticky financial situations of some of the workers. Maybe a partygoer stuffed the jewels in their clutch, or a cash-strapped worker saw a way out. Whatever happened, the jewels remained missing well over a century later. Despite the name, the Treasure of Lima may be nowhere near Peru. Back in 1820, Spain was still a dominant force in the Americas, but Argentine General José de San Martín had his eyes on Lima after helping Argentina win its independence in 1812, and Chile in 1818. Having already lost twice, the Spanish viceroy ordered all the loot under his control moved out of the capital. Others added their valuables to the pile for safekeeping, and it was handed over to British trade captain William Thompson. The idea was that Thompson would sail around with a ship full of booty until it was safe to return to Peru, but we wouldn't be talking about lost treasure if that had worked. And let's get real. Is anybody surprised Thompson and his crew succumbed to temptation once they were at sea? They away with the viceroy's representatives and buried the stolen treasure? When you think about it, Spain had stolen the treasure first, but the Spanish were mad, and when they caught up with the crew, they executed most of them for piracy.
I says he walks the plank. The plank!
They probably should have held off on that for a minute since they didn't manage to find out where the treasure was buried. Thompson and his first mate promised to show them, but on their way to the buried treasure, they escaped into the jungles of Cocos Island off Costa Rica, and neither they nor the loot were ever seen again. This could be because the still uninhabited Cocos Island, now a national park, is tough to access nowadays, or maybe, like smart pirates, Thompson and his first mate lied to the dudes who were absolutely going to execute them anyway. For his part, San Martín lost the treasure, but he took Lima and helped Peru achieve independence in 1821. The Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan represented a massive achievement in culture, engineering, and city planning until the conquistadors showed up. Cortez and company created an almighty mess. They attempted a getaway in 1520 after committing a massacre and capturing the emperor with all the stolen gold in tow. They were attacked and driven out on what's now known as La Noche Triste, or as it's known in Mexico, Victorious Night. Even though if you know a little Spanish, you realize that means the sad night. Well, that's because it was. You see, many Spanish died, but Cortez survived and the Aztec people were eventually colonized. But what happened to the treasure? A tantalizing clue showed up in 1981 when a construction worker in Mexico City, which was built on top of the former Aztec capital, found a hefty gold bar. The location was right. Gold was said to have been dropped into a canal during La Noche Triste. Researchers found that the metal composition matched up with the confirmed Aztec gold, but little else has been recovered since. Maybe the Aztecs managed to whisk it out of town. Montezuma II, the emperor who met Cortez and likely died on La Noche Triste, ruled over a sizable territory. Perhaps the Aztecs pulled the treasure out of the canal and hid it away somewhere. There's even a claim they made it as far as the modern-day US. Who wouldn't like to wear a massive diamond at least once? Take the Florentine diamond, a yellow diamond that weighed in at a staggering 137.27 metric carats, about the size of a walnut. Sounds like the perfect thing for a glam night out, but you'd have to find it first. Legend has it that the diamond came from India, passed through the hands of Portuguese traders, and that Charles the Bold was wearing it when he died in battle in 1477. Maybe not. In case you're wondering, he was Charles the Bold because he was a bit brash and wild, not because he wore jewelry into battle. Anyway, we do know that somehow the rock made it into the hands of Ferdinand II, the 17th century Duke of Tuscany. And after a few highbrow marriages and a possible appearance or two in a royal portrait, it ended up with the Habsburgs, who eventually took it on the chin, and the diamond made its way to the Austrian Empire. The last known owner was Charles I, the former emperor of Austria, who in 1918 sent the diamond and other jewels to Switzerland, where he planned to live in exile. It never made it there. The Florentine diamond hasn't been seen since. One theory says that Charles or his family sold the diamond because they were about to take a serious economic hit. Another theory is that it was entrusted to a loyal servant for safekeeping in a mysterious far-flung location. Whether loyalty prevailed is an open question.
A king's ransom in art jewels, and gems from the collection of the late Tsar of Russia.
That old-timey report sums it up. Fabergé eggs were quite the draw for folks. In case you were wondering the name origin, they come from jeweler Peter Carl Fabergé, who was a favorite in the Imperial Russian Romanovs. In 1887, he created a jewel-encrusted egg that Tsar Nicholas II gave his wife Empress Alexandra for Easter. Fabergé was commissioned to create several more, all of which were seized by the Bolsheviks after the 1917 Russian Revolution. Vladimir Lenin was said to be quite taken by the pieces and held on to them, but his successor Joseph Stalin had no compunctions about selling them off, starting in 1927. Some ended up in private collections, and a few have since been recovered in unassuming shops, but a handful remain missing.
To find one of them is the luck of not just one lifetime, but 1,000 lifetimes.
These lost Imperial Fabergé eggs may be squirreled away in an unsuspecting antique store, but where? Would you believe that they're in the US? The evidence for that is 3 shipments of vaguely described but highly valued antiques that arrived in New Orleans in 1991 and 1992. The shipments came from the Soviet Union and Turkey. The shipments are collectively valued at $285 million in today's money, and all 3 had similar manifests, referencing antiques over 100 years old. Is this the smoking gun? Not necessarily, but live science uncovered a long-standing practice of these sorts of mysterious shipments. Though their contents remained undisclosed for legal reasons, it's not hard to imagine a glittering Fabergé egg or two socked away in just such a cache.